Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the Tech Founder Show. It's Tony Zayas. I'm flying solo this week. And before we dive in and introduce today's guest, I just wanted to remind everyone that we have an exciting event coming up. I'm going to put the link on our screen there, but we're doing the Tech Throwdown 2021. We're actually 29 days away. It's coming up here at the end of September. It's this Greater Cleveland Partnership Tech Week. This throwdown is an opportunity for early stage SaaS and tech device and startups to pitch their business. We're going to give away some awesome prizes, which will include professional services of sorts, cash, and more. We have an exciting panel of made up of a number of founders who've had great success with their businesses that can be, offer some outstanding insights. We're really looking forward to this. We're going to actually open the day off with one of our shows. So our Wednesday show is always the SaaS Founder Show. We're going to open it up at the beginning of the day. We're going to be doing things throughout the day, but it'll be in the evening. You can take a look at the site to learn all about the event. We'd love to have you join just to watch. For those of you who'd like to participate, throw your hat in the ring, practice pitching, get out there and maybe win some exciting prizes and whatnot. We'd love to have you. So please reach out, take a look at the website, and looking forward to the event. So with that out of the way, I'm excited about today's guest. We have Carson Goodale. He's a co-founder and chief strategy officer at FanFood. And FanFood is a mobile ordering app for stadium concession stands. Carson founded FanFood as a sophomore at the University of Iowa as an app for bars. And now years later, FanFood has served at 300 plus venues worldwide. So pretty exciting growth there. And yes, I too am a Hawkeye, so I'm excited to have a fellow Hawkeye here on with me on the show. So Carson, welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. It's cool. It's cool to see another Hawkeye. How are you?
Yeah, for sure. So just to kick it off, Carson, I read the description, right, of what FanFood is, but tell me about the app. How do you explain it?
Yeah, well, so FanFood is an app that allows fans at sporting events to order concessions directly from their seat. And then depending on the venue, they can either get it delivered directly to them, or they could order it for express pickup. So they'll order it, they'll get a notification when their order is ready for pickup, bypassing any long, annoying, frustrating lines that you probably have experienced in a stadium environment. So
that sounds like something that would originate at Kinnick Stadium. So pretty cool. So I would love to hear, what's the origin story? Like, how did you come up with the idea? Was it, I think you're the co-founder, right? So was it a group of you, two of you?
Yeah.
Tell us the story. We'd love to hear.
Yeah. So like you said, University of Iowa, my sophomore year, I was at a bar with some of my buddies. This probably will come as no surprise as a fellow Iowan Hawkeye, but yeah, complaining about a crappy bar experience I was having, super crowded, as I'm sure you can imagine. Wanted the ability to get a drink without having to, navigate through a crowded bar. So I said to my buddies, wouldn't it be great if I could order a drink off my phone, have a server bring it to us rather than us having to navigate through this bar? And I think there was a lot of, back then, a lot of excitement with off-premise last mile delivery companies with Grubhub, Postmates, kind of, taking this on-demand convenience economy and really running with it. And, we pivoted into sports really because I felt as a fan, that was the biggest problem that we, wanted to solve, was waiting, in long, annoying lines. And so that was the original thesis, was to start there, start small and grow our way up. So
really cool. So you have that idea, you're sitting there discussing it with your buddy and probably writing out a bar napkin. How did you what did that journey look like from that idea to diving deeper into it? I would even love to hear kind of what did that look like as you guys thought, hey, I think we might be onto something. And then when did you get to the point to say, all right, let's actually build this thing?
Yeah, no. And it was funny. So it was actually one of my buddies who was at the bar texted me and he goes, hey, instead of going out tonight on a weekend in college, do you want to, and I remember it perfect. He's like, do you want to burn the midnight oil and, take this idea, put it on paper and see, what we could actually do with it. And I'm like, that sounds cool.
Wow.
He, he had no desire actually to continue the project after college. And, but it was interesting because I remember that we got together, we started like talking about, the idea. At the time, the University of Iowa was, there was a new department, entrepreneurship, and there was an extracurricular kind of community that was focused on supporting entrepreneurs with ideas to start, businesses. And so one of my natural next steps, natural next steps was to get involved in that extracurricular kind of entrepreneurship club to start to learn from people who've been there, done that. And so we got assigned a mentor pretty early on to help us kind of navigate how do we take a business from an idea into, a viable concept. So a lot of in the early days, when it was still a bar drinking app, we would go to every bar at the University of Iowa. We would sit down with the owners and the managers and learn if this would be a valuable tool that they would implement at the bars. We would start, when we made that decision to pivot, we were getting a lot of customer feedback from venue operators. We did a lot of surveying of fans, just to try to collect as much data as possible before taking the jump into building out some software, because it can get pretty expensive and time intensive.
So it sounds like you did a lot of the groundwork, the research, all that stuff up front before diving into development, which happens sometimes. Sometimes it's the other way, it's backwards and validating the product afterwards. So I think you probably did it the right way. I would love to hear a little bit more about, you said you met someone and that mentorship. That's a theme that we see so frequently on this show, talking to founders, just how important mentorship and communities, tapping into people who've been there, that you can learn from. What did that look like? How did you find that person, and what did that relationship look like?
Yeah, no, I was super fortunate. So I got like kind of paired. The community that I was a part of, the extracurricular community, was called like the Founders Club or something. Paired me with a mentor, and they said, we, based on what you're building or want to build, we feel like this person would be a good fit for you. And so they were really helpful in making that introduction and then helping establish kind of a regular cadence, which I think is important in the early days because you don't really know what you're learning, right? It's more of like a retrospective thing of like, oh, he gave some really good advice back then, or I learned this from him back then, and then so he was Ben O'Connor, one of the co-founders of Higher Learning Technologies, came out of one of the more successful technology companies to come out of the state of Iowa. And funny, he actually dropped out of college his last year in dentistry school, to pursue a technology company. And I remember one of the key pieces of advice he gave me in the early days. He said, Carson, if you're serious about doing this, after you graduate, you got to go full time with it. And my whole thought process back then was, I studied finance. That's where I got my degree in. And I just knew that this idea, from a fan perspective, of skipping lines and ordering stuff through your phone would be a thing. And I didn't want to look back in 5 or 10 years and ask myself, what if, right? What if I could have been that person to go and invent it? And so I took his advice and went all in.
It's really cool. I would love to hear what the original product, that MVP, what did that look like when you guys first put it out there?
Not a sexy product, that's for sure. It was so just focusing on express pickup. So my co-founder, who I actually met through the Entrepreneur Club, pursuing a very similar problem that FanFood was looking to solve for: the ability to stay seated in a stadium environment, place your order from a concession stand, and get notified when it's ready for express pickup. So we stayed hyper focused on creating an express pickup lane kind of experience. That was the easiest to kind of solve for. And we were fortunate to pilot it at my partner's high school. So that
Oh,
was
cool.
a very basic MVP. It was a downloadable app on iOS and Android. So at the time, there were like the React Native technologies that you could build one language, and it would, allow you to download both iOS and Android, as opposed to building out, languages for each individual product. So we kind of allowed us to save some costs in the early days, get a product out that could accept the payment, create a menu, accept the payment, and some basic communication to let them know that the order is ready for pickup. And then we had to create the technology on the back end, the order management system, to actually receive and fulfill those incoming orders. And we're just like, how do we make this process as very easy as possible? So that was the original MVP.
So how did you work to build it out from there? From you have that point, do you have that MVP? It's the minimum viable product. It's something that's simple, basic. You're getting it out there. How did you start to build the product out? What did your team look like? Like, who was actually doing the development? Because I think you said that you had a finance degree, and so you're not a technical founder, or so it sounds that way. Who did you rely on, and how did you develop the software?
Yeah, no. So it's actually kind of crazy story. A lot of crazy stories with entrepreneurs, I'm sure. But the first attempt at it was a miserable failure. Actually, I got introduced through a buddy who was at a different college, who was trying to build a business that helped entrepreneurs build apps. So we met with this guy, and he's like, I could absolutely do this for you. He made an awesome presentation with some wireframes, gave him the vision. He said it's going to be $15,000. We're like, okay, that's a lot of money, but I've been working, being from Iowa. My first job was at age 14, bussing tables. So I've always worked throughout, so I had a good amount of money saved up. Co-founders had some money saved, so we used some savings, scrapped it together. And long story short, never made it to a production environment. It was cash in, cash out. The end result was some nice wireframes. And so that was a really big setback during college, and a lot of money that was just wasted. And something about me, I'm a pretty persistent guy. And one of our college professors was also an entrepreneur that built apps and had a whole development team, and goes, I can help you guys get an MVP out pretty quick and pretty inexpensively. And so we kind of pivoted. We took those, at least the framework that we had presented, and then we, used him as a resource. And then he had a team in overseas, and we built it, and we're able to actually get a minimal viable product. But in the early days too, and after that second attempt, my dad has built and exited 2 software kind of companies on the side. So in the early days, he built a website business, and then another one that was more geared toward like a Groupon kind of website years ago called Town Wild. But so he had a little bit of a software background, so he was actually very helpful in the beginning days, helping build out the infrastructure and managing the product with these overseas, developers, because I'm a non-technical kind of background, so it's actually very helpful in the beginning. So it's kind of cool to work with my dad.
Oh, that is cool. Does he? So is he part of that support network? Is he someone you go to, to bounce ideas off of, to get advice from, suggestions, that type of thing?
Definitely in the early days, he was very, very helpful, and had a lot of cool ideas as to like where we could take this. And we executed on some of those ideas, from building out when we started to do in-seat delivery services. He was very helpful in actually building out another piece of our platform. We call it the Runner app. So the ability for a runner to manage those in-seat delivery orders and have it all synced up, so we could track, how efficient people are delivering, who's actually delivering in a timely fashion, who's not, being able to communicate what average delivery times and fulfillment times look like. So all of that type of stuff, he was very much involved with in the beginning stages, and that was very helpful. Today, we have new mentors, as you grow professionally, and as my career kind of taken off, there came a point where it was in the best interest, to go on, kind of split the family and professional ties, because you start to raise some money, you start to grow out a team. He had another full-time job, so there was a point where we both were like, okay, helped you get to the starting point. Now it's on you to kind of take it to that next level.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. That's something we've seen quite a bit, is just the different ways people look at working with family. We've had co-founders on who are husband and wife. We've had people on who said, I would never get my family involved there. That's pretty interesting. Yeah. I'd like to go back, just rewind for a little bit and go back to talk about that first attempt. You said it was a miserable failure. What do you think the lesson learned? Like, why did things go off the rails? You never got to, the product being delivered there. What happened in that instance?
I was, naive a little bit. I think I got really excited by what I saw without probably vetting or doing my due diligence on the back end. I think I trusted, because it was a warm introduction from a close friend that I grew up with. I think I just trusted that relationship rather than verifying, are they actually good at what they say that they are doing. And so, my lesson learned is trust but verify.
Yep, there you go. And along those lines, how has that helped you as you move forward, or move more forward since then, to what are some of the things that you do to do just that, to verify those parties you're working with, vet them out?
Well, from a development or technical perspective, even to this day, it remains a big challenge because I'm non-technical. Like, I can speak it a little bit, and be dangerous, but I'm not. I have to really you have to rely on a good team. Like, we have a really great. We can probably get into this a little bit later, but when we closed our first seed round, our lead investor was very helpful in bringing our now, who is our CTO, on, and he's just been tremendous to work with, and it's someone who is both a great technical leader and executioner. If that makes sense. So not afraid to get his hands dirty in the early days and actually build and develop code, as well as support where we want to take it. And I think that's like important in the early days. Someone that can kind of do a little bit of both. But so there's that. And then we've implemented kind of processes to hiring, processes to actually vet, the people that we are bringing on from a technical perspective to verify the skills that they say that they have. So that's good. A couple.
No, that's helpful. To talk a little bit about that, the funding aspect. So how long did you run with the app, just bootstrapping it? And when did you get to the point of knowing that you needed to get funding, or that was, the desired path? Because a lot of times we'll talk about that. When is the right time to look for funding? How far do you want to take something? Bootstrapping, right? There's a lot of questions there for a lot of folks who are early in the game. So I'd love to get your take on that and kind of hear what you guys did.
I would probably have done it a little bit differently. Looking back at it, I probably would have tried to extend the runway as much as possible, especially in the early days. Try to do everything as cheap and as inexpensive as possible in the early days. And as a first-time founder too, I always felt that we need this feature and that feature and this feature, and I'm very much product driven with a lot of ideas, but really asking yourself, do you really need all of those features to validate product market fit in the early stages? But when I graduated college, I moved into dad's basement for 7 months, pursuing it full time, and trying to onboard new accounts, execute some partnerships, because my area, despite the fact that I got a finance degree, as a founder, kind of geared myself toward more of the sales and marketing areas of focus for me. That's kind of where you had to build my initial skill set. And so after 7 months in dad's basement, I remember, okay, how do I take it to this next phase? Like, if I really want to take it to this next level, in my mind, I wanted to go to a city where that I could leverage resources, build my own connections, and network with people that could really help me take it to that next level. And so what we did was I made the intentional decision to move to Chicago, partnered up with a group called Bunker Labs. So it's a nonprofit that helps veterans validate their ideas, to see if they, turn it into a business. I have a little bit of a background in the military too. And so, they were in the 1871 incubator there in Chicago, had an office. And so that was kind of my excuse to get up there. And when we did a launch party as well, to kind of announce, hey, this is who we are with FanFood. And we initiated kind of like a family and friends round of funding during that time. And so we were able to secure a little bit of funds from that perspective. And then shortly thereafter, we did an equity crowdfunding raise, and then as well as raised some money from angel investors, all combined for those next, probably 1 to 2 years. Yeah, that's about right. 2 years is how we kind of got funding on that front.
So what was your experience in going through that? We hear a lot of times that, doing fundraising, being out, just the networking, the pitching, it's a full-time job. So how did your role, what did it look like during that time when you guys were looking to secure more funds?
It's still part of my job description today. I'm actually a lot of my time right now is spent on raising funds and connecting with investors that align with our thesis and their thesis, and explore if it's a good fit and kind of just go down that process. But really, it's very similar to sales. You know what I mean? You got to learn how to be a good salesman. I remember early on, when I was with the Bunker Labs, they put on it's kind of like an accelerator 1 day a week. They'd bring in classes, they would teach and try to, you learn new skills. And one of the classes was about storytelling. And so, we learned how to pitch your company and the structure of which, to pitch it so that it's compelling and it's captivating. And I got partnered up with the person that actually gave that presentation to learn more, because, and then early on they helped, with creating an investor deck and the materials and how to tell a story and talk about what matters and all of that stuff. But I think it's a very much underrated skill, storytelling.
Yeah, I don't know if you heard at the beginning, I was mentioning we're actually hosting a pitch night event. It's we're calling it the Tech Throwdown. It's towards the end of the month in September. So we're going to have, some startups that are going to be pitching. If there's any of those people that are tuned in, going to be watching this, what tips would you give to them based on what you learned? You said storytelling, and seems like something that, you kind of enjoy doing. What are some, what is the one tip you would suggest? Yeah.
Sometimes it can be exhausting, but my tip is to keep it simple. And I'm sure a lot of the people listening into this call are familiar with the gentleman by the name of Simon Sinek. He gives a great TED talk on why, how, what, and framing your kind of pitch that way. So
yeah,
why do you exist as a company? Start there. How do you deliver against that why? And then ultimately, like, what are you building? So it's like, with FanFood, we exist because we want to create the ultimate fan experience. How do we deliver that through online and mobile ordering? But what is it? An app for fans to download at sporting events to get concessions delivered to their seat. So it's like just a frame of thinking that's really concise, that allows to get your point across, and then, let the investors just ask as many questions as possible.
Yeah, that's great advice. Really appreciate it. I love that talk by Simon Sinek. And then I've also heard of the idea that there's different type of learners, and some of, everyone has a different style. And the people who are one of those types is the why learner. And that's the person who the first thing they need to know is why. Otherwise, if you don't tell why, they're tuned out and they're not interested. The other people that are the what learners, the how learners, they'll wait. They're further along in the process. But and everyone's interested in the why, may not be the most important for everybody, but those why learners, you lose them. So I love that. I use that whenever I present because I think I'm actually a why learner. So I get that. If I don't get the why, I really good a tip there. So that's fantastic, and I appreciate you sharing that. Now I would love to hear, just with the nature of the app, how do you guys, and again, because you're interested and you've been real active, you said, on the marketing and sales side of things, how do you differentiate yourself from the Grubhubs of the world and the other solutions that are out there that might be similar, but definitely different?
Tony, you with me?
Yeah. Are you there?
Yep. A little bit of breakup.
Okay. No problem. Am I back now?
Yep.
Okay. I was just asking, with the Grubhubs of the world and the other, it may not be competitors, but let's say alternatives, different solutions that might sound similar, but you're actually offering something pretty unique. How do you differentiate in that marketplace? Because, from my standpoint, I know it only casually. It seems like a fairly crowded space these days. So how did you address that? And how do you guys keep that differentiation? How do you maintain that?
Yeah, so I think with the traditional kind of third-party delivery companies, I think the easiest way to think about it is you have off-premise versus on-premise. So off-premise being, you're at your house, you want to order from a local restaurant, and the Grubhubs and the Postmates of the world, the DoorDashes, facilitates that last mile delivery. So providing the actual staffing to make that fulfillment possible right to your doorstep. With FanFood, we're more of a technology platform in the sense that all of the ordering is on premise. So although we have the ability to order ahead before an event, all of our technology is geared toward streamlining that ordering process day of event, from a concession stand, and building the technology to just streamline that operation and make it as efficient as possible. So that's a key kind of differentiator. Just kind of the overall business model is a little bit different. And then I think like we have a pretty unique niche in the sports and live entertainment space, targeting venues from high schools and minor league sports and colleges and things like that. That is a little bit different in that regard. Yeah, those are some key ones. I could probably go on for forever, but probably get boring for the listeners.
That's great. No, and my next question was actually going to be about the target audience, and it sounds like those events is that who you're targeting? Is it the consumer, the user, or is it the venues or is it dual?
It's a little bit of dual. Part of our venue success team does work with the venue operators on an activation strategy, and is very hands-on in that approach, from providing personalized or customized on-site graphics to recommending certain social media campaigns, or how to activate it, digitally, or embed, our web app into their, the athletic director's website, or, the sports team website. And so I think we're as helpful as we can be. Some of our technology, we have the ability to create promo codes, to incentivize users to use the technology. But, our focus is very much on the B2B side. Firstly, the more that they're bought into the technology, the better the adoption. And to your first question about target audience, we had a target audience, being the venue operators. Last year was a little bit of a challenge, quite painful at times. And, when our business relies on large event gatherings and the pandemic kind of happened, that initial target audience changed pretty quickly to a new target in order to continue to bring cash flow in. And so, we had to get really creative and quickly pivot new areas of focus to keep the business moving forward.
What did that, and this is like become a standard question that we ask, how did the pandemic affect the business? And in your case, right, it's live events that you guys are serving. So, as a founder, what was going through your head when venues started shutting down and you realized, like, wow, like events are going to be indefinitely suspended? What were your thoughts? And then how did you regroup to figure out, hey, where are we going to go?
First thought is, I didn't want to believe it at first. I was one of those people that were like, oh, this pandemic, it's not gonna be that. I didn't want to believe, right? But quickly found out that I was like, we're effed to put it right. And but again, I think part of my personality is I'm a pretty persistent guy, and and maybe there's some of the military warrior ethos in me that just never refuses to quit or give up, and wanted to figure out a way that in what we were building too, I think it was contactless. One of the biggest trends in the sports and entertainment space was taking venues cashless pre-pandemic. Well, now it's, the technology that we were building was very much supporting that trend. And so, like, when the pandemic happened, I was like, surely there is a way to continue to persevere through these times. And so one of the key things that we did was focused on drive-in movie theaters. It's pretty much like one of the only events you as a consumer could go to. And so we had some early wins in the drive-in space. And so, like, team just focused a lot pretty heavily during that time and end up getting probably 15, 20% of that market in a really small period of time. And, today it's a very nice business, for the company, and, adding a lot of value for folks that are actually going to the drive-in movie theater. They can stay in their car, order concessions, get notified when it's ready for pickup. Some are doing the delivery to car too, which is an even better experience. But that was a really good pivot for us. Other areas that we went into on the hospitality side were hotels and resorts. Started to see some early wins on that. So, whether you're using a QR code for room service inside your hotel, or you're at a pool cabana or at a beachfront, there's different use cases that are being leveraged today through our technology to streamline that ordering process. You make it on demand for the consumers there, so they don't have to wait for a server to come by every 30 minutes to place your order. It's streamlined and it's contactless. So although in the short term, we're supporting social distancing, we're supporting contactless solutions. And it makes fans and guests feel safe and makes them feel comfortable. But really, we believe long term, there's a silver lining for the business, especially accelerating a lot of the fan behaviors around mobile ordering and adoption.
Really cool. I bet if if I would have told you a couple of years before, let's say you launched your business, that you would have this, technology that'd be serving drive-in theaters, and it would have been a hot, necessary thing, you probably would have told me I'm crazy, right?
Yeah,
That's pretty
yeah,
funny.
exactly. And it was like, we had, it's a huge, like one of the biggest milestones to date was when we signed the first term sheet for, a real investor group, our first seed round when I signed it. Like, I'll never forget that day. It was very memorable. And that was literally quarter one, or, January of 2019. And so, like, if you think about it, we closed, you sign the term sheet, you don't close, you start building up your team. Like, that's going to take, 3 to 6 months. So if you think about it, we really started to grow the business, and then the pandemic kind of, slapped us in the face a little bit. So it's fast track to getting an MBA, let me tell you that. But not an ideal scenario for any founder that's looking to, pursue their dreams. But I think definitely one that allowed us to execute a lot of creativity, allowed the team to kind of come together and figure out how we continue to move forward and innovate. And some of the things that, we've been able to do during this time, and the customers we've been able to help and continue to add value for, are, I think the whole team just feels very fortunate that, we're still here today. We like many companies that faced the pandemic, we had to downsize as well, pretty significantly. So that's always painful to go through. But it's been a crazy roller coaster ride, that's for sure.
Yeah. So as a founder or co-founder, you guys are the leaders, and you have these employees who are like everybody else, like you at the same time. Everyone's nervous. Everyone doesn't know what to expect. Last year, how did you instill confidence in your team and keep people, focused on, moving forward and building out a great product and calm their fears a little bit?
That's a really good question. I think especially, with the pandemic, we also transitioned to a full, like, remote kind of, and like a lot of companies did, right?
Yeah.
And so I think one of the things that, my co-founder and I like did a good job of early on was just being transparent with everybody, like the whole team. Like, here are the challenges, and maybe, I don't know if maybe too transparent, but here's like, here's what the current, even coming down to like the cash burn, right, on a monthly basis. And it's like, we have to figure this out, otherwise that means that we have to reduce the team size. And it's like everyone, especially in the early days, are, invested in what we're doing in the team, and very, very solid team. And so we were, I mean, like, even on the sales front, we had SDRs that were originally responsible for booking appointments that we quickly pivoted to, hey, if this is a market, you have an opportunity, close it. So we tried to empower our people as much as possible to figure out what the best plan forward would look like. But knowing that, in the military, where they say no plan survives first contact. And so, like, I think we increased, our communication to the team, and we're just as transparent as possible, and trying to be as helpful, right? I think, like, one of my the strategic priorities in quarter one of 2020 was to initiate a Series A round of financing. Didn't quite make it, and it's like, okay, probably not going to be the most productive use of my time, given where our core customers are based during this pandemic, with no really future outlook of when it's going to come back. So it's like, where's the best use of my time? How can I be as helpful to the team? And so, kind of, instead of focusing outward, kind of focused on inward, with our people, and just kind of came together as a team to figure it out. And I think the team did a tremendous job. We added over 220 new venues during the pandemic, and it was actually for us still considered a growth year in revenue year over year from 2019.
Wow.
In a lot of
Congrats.
ways, yeah, as a success. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean that's a very impressive achievement, especially having to figure that out. Figuring out what that pivot is, and so yeah, I mean that's fantastic. A couple of times now you've referenced your military background, and I would love to hear. Do you feel that there are any traits that the military instilled in you? And the reason I ask this is because that have parlayed into your role as a founder and heading up a company. The reason I ask this is I know quite a few entrepreneurs who have a military background, and I typically see that manifest different in a few different ways. I would love to hear just your thoughts on that.
Yeah, without a doubt. I would say the skill sets that I've learned and developed during my time in the military, and the mentorship that I received from leaders that I have some of the utmost respect for, come from the military. Traits that I want to emulate, right? So I would say definitely there's been a handful of skills that I feel like translate well to entrepreneurship. And I think it even goes to the very ethos of, the warrior ethos that you learn all the way back into basic training, right? I'll always place submission first. I'll never accept defeat. I'll never quit. I'll never leave a fallen comrade. And you learn that, day one, when you're going through basic training. And I think the military, I mean, you kind of end up embodying that. And I think a lot of those ethos are very translatable into entrepreneurship, right? I will always place mission first. Why do you exist as a company? We talked about Simon Sinek. I mean, that right there. I will never accept defeat. I'll never quit. It's like, a lot of I feel like with entrepreneurship, it's like the easy part of starting isn't starting a business, or is starting a business. The hard part is just being consistent with it over time, right? And just in that progress, like that's like the hard part about it, and just never giving up. And so I feel like some of those ethos, it's like when the pandemic could have easily given up, during that time. And I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to, I take my job and the people like very seriously. And I, wanted to, not have to, let people go if we could do something about this situation. If we can, if it's in our control, then like we should execute that. Other things too, like pretty structured kind of person. So that's probably from the military side. I was enlisted for a little bit and then commissioned as an officer. So, I think of when I'm, as I think about the organizational chart, I think there's a lot of takeaways and principles that I've learned in terms of like chain of command and communication. And there's also some things that, I've learned that slow, the process of innovation down a bit. And there's some things I can take away that I, didn't, think was good for a startup in the early days. So I think I'm very much, progressive in that regard.
That's pretty cool. That's and that's on par with a lot of the others I've seen. Is there's some of those traits that are at least amplified, even if they're there with that military experience. I would ask, you mentioned that also, kind of the wherewithal and resiliency that you have as a trait. Is that something that you've always had? Because that is such an important trait as an entrepreneur and a founder, is that, always figuring out a new way forward. Or is that something that's grown over time? Obviously, probably your military experience certainly helped pull that out, but I would love to hear if that was something developed over time.
I think it was. I think a driving motivator for me too, for a while, was just like proving people wrong. I played high school sports. I played basketball. I played football. I ran track for a little bit. And I remember like my junior year of high school, my sophomore year, On the football team, I didn't really play at all. So I didn't go out my junior year. New coach comes in and says, Carson, we'd like you to join the team. Because I throughout my sophomore and junior year in high school, I continued to work out, lift weights, matured a little bit, and I continued to work hard. Coach asked me to go out. I go out, and then my senior year, I end up starting on both offense and defense. And I think so to your question, when you asked that, has it been with you, for that's where kind of my mind went, way back even early on then. And so maybe, but I definitely think that it was amplified, through the military, definitely.
Yeah, very cool.
Maybe.
Yeah, it's kind of like a muscle, right? The more you engage it, the stronger it gets. So yeah, it's pretty cool.
The persistent muscle is probably just bulging.
Yeah, that's a common one for the entrepreneur, right? To have a bulging persistence muscle.
Yeah, for sure.
Just to shift gears a little bit, just to talk kind of about the product. We talk a lot about. We like to hear from founders about that user feedback. What is the process that you use to collect, capture, understand, what your users' experience is like, and then learn from it to build out a roadmap that makes sense and help prioritize what feature sets you're going to work on? How do you guys go about that process?
It is really, really challenging, especially when you have someone like me who has 1.5 million different ideas. And so how do you prioritize, with our sales team, for example, hey, we just lost a deal because we didn't have this integration, or we didn't have this feature. And then, we're communicating with our venue partners. Hey, we love your product right now. We think it's great. It would make our life a little bit easier if we built Y, unrelated to the first example. So it's in the early days, what should you prioritize? Should you prioritize to get more deals, to sales, to ensure that our sales team is getting every opportunity to not close a deal, which revenue in the early days is very important. It always is. Versus, that feature, it's a nice to have for our customers, but do they really need, really start to challenge? I think, something that, we've over time, as our processes have evolved, one thing that we do a really good job with is on the venue success side, we connect with all the venue partners that are leveraging the platform on a day-to-day basis. We follow up with them after the first event, after the first week. We monitor the data. And if there's any inflection, like any increase, big increase jump or decrease in jump, we're like, why is that? And we really hone in. And so we're very active in getting feedback with our venue partners. We've set up a system too, leveraging our CRM. We have automated emails that go out every month and quarter that collect feedback to collect the net promoter score and things like that. So I think our process on the B2B side is pretty solid. I think where we could do a better job is on the B2C side. So how do we start to be more of an advocate for the customers of our customer, so to speak, and how do we start to prioritize certain features and functionality to make their lives a little bit easier? But really, like when we started, the mission of FanFood was at the very beginning, how do we make that ordering process at the end of the day is as simple as possible and easy to use, because we just want the fan to enjoy every single moment and experience. That's why they're there. That's why they paid a lot of money to be there in the first place. So if we can make a great product with a great user interface, make it sexy, hopefully that can at least solve the problem of waiting in line. And then and so that's kind of how we think about it. And then it goes down to what are the resources? What's your budget? What can you afford to execute against your kind of product roadmap? But you do hear it all the time, right? With Amazon and Bezos, their big testament to success is, a customer, perspective, or customer first approach to everything that they build. And, there definitely comes a point where that should absolutely become the priority. But it is a judgment call, kind of a gut call in the early days of figuring out how to do it. So it just kind of depends on like where you're at as a company.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, that's all good thoughts. To that point, there a lot of times it's never a simple decision to make as far as which, what do you do to make this group happy or that group? And like
Totally.
you said, it's a judgment call, and that's where you got to go with your gut. You got to have good mentors. You got to have, your overarching, big vision in mind, and make your decision that way. So no, that's fantastic. I would like to hear just briefly before we get to our last couple of questions here and wrap up. From a marketing standpoint, what have you guys done? What's been the most, successful thing you've done? Channel, tactic, whatever that might be.
Yeah, no. So very much, again, like where our current team size is, what our resource allocation looks like. The priority for our marketing is very much on the B2B side. As the company continues to grow, as we get more resources, we see ourselves opening up more of a B2C kind of team that kind of really focus in on driving those activations on an event by event basis, as well as maybe like some co-op, marketing or brand partnership kind of integrations. But our priority right now is on the B2B front. And so where do we see our successes? I think, again, it goes back to consistency. Over time, our Isabella, who's our head of marketing, has done just a tremendous job of figuring out, learning what the community that follows FanFood today, what do they engage with? We double down on that. It's very much still product driven. So we are continuing to push out new features on a monthly basis. So we have a nice little strategy of communicating with our customers, partners, community about new products and new features and how that adds value to our customers. So that's awesome. But like we're very, very active on all social media platforms, from Twitter to LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook. So, and it's daily content is being pushed out. And we have a very healthy mix of blog content creation as well. So, the data that we are collecting, what about, venue A is so much more successful than venue B? Why are they making so much more money? Why are their fans placing more orders? Is it the menu? Is it their pricing strategy? Like what? So, we're at a point now we're starting to kind of collect a lot of this data. And so we're trying to combine it with creating positive customer testimonies with compelling data points to expand that reach to our community, to try to help, garner more B2B leads for the sales team. And so I think because of that whole kind of our whole inbound marketing strategy and our consistency with social over the last probably 2 years has resulted in us, getting organic leads pretty consistently, filling out forms to learn more about our product, requesting a demo, and kind of now it's pretty organic. We have really great SEO because of that, because we've been consistent with the content that we have created. And so that's kind of like where we're at right now. The more consistent we can be, the more folks that, can hear about us, and, and that's kind of how we're approaching it. So,
I totally follow that. And it's funny because that message that you're preaching of consistency, it's kind of the secret to the universe at times, but it's never sexy, but it's that incremental gains with consistency over time and just sticking with it. But fantastic to hear that you guys are getting those results and organic inbound leads and all that. That's excellent. We're just about out of time, but I would like to hear, what does the roadmap look like? What do you have in store for the next 12 months?
Oh, good question. From a product perspective?
Yeah, overall. product,
Mhm.
any other thing that you're thinking? What's new and exciting coming in the next 12?
Yeah, no, I think that I think I was saying it a little bit earlier. There's still a little bit of concerns with the whole Delta variant, right? And potential impacts that may have on the sports and live entertainment industry. Concerns of events getting canceled are, so we're kind of still, I don't want to say we're on pins and needles a little bit, but that it is still remaining a concern. And on the flip side, it does reinforce the need for certain kind of contactless technologies like FanFood. So where we're focused on, over the next 12 months is whatever systems that our venue operators may be used to, point of sale, for example, how do we make that integration as seamless as possible for them? So point of sale integrations are a big one. And I think, creating better loyalty with the customers, with the event goers, so to speak. And then I think longer term, because we'll see. I mean, once you start to get in the world of like integrations and prioritizing that, that's pretty time and development intensive. But where I see it going, FanFood going more broadly, is a new kind of and it kind of sounds like funny, but it's like a new generation of commerce, right? Like what Shopify did to websites, I feel like we're doing for event kind of commerce. And so although today we've gotten really good at creating like an F&B lane, we have the data to support that we can help our venues make more money, streamline their costs. There's some cost savings, so make their business more profitable and deliver a better customer experience. How do we start to look at where those integrations can take us? And so it kind of lends itself to this whole idea of owning the entire digital journey. So from the moment someone purchases a ticket to booking their parking in advance, to booking their concessions in advance or merchandise in advance, the more that we can get people to plan and do stuff in advance, the better that the venue operators can be at predicting inventory requirements, staffing requirements, which is a huge issue still, right, going on right now. And like, it'd be really cool to just say, hey, like, I'm going to go to my seat and I'm going to get a t-shirt, jersey, and my concessions delivered in the first half. And it's all done. But the fan behavior, it's going to take a little bit of time to get there. Integration requirements, and creating that whole ecosystem with the partners that do exist in the space. That's going to take a little time, but I think that's where we're headed. And hopefully it is a better experience in the long run for the customers and venue operators. So
that's outstanding. You started off by saying that it might sound a little weird, but I think big ideas that, kind of change the game always do. So super exciting and really cool stuff that you're up to. Before I ask my last question of the day, where can people go to find out more about FanFood, about you, and follow what you guys are up to?
Yeah, well, my name is Carson Goodale. You can find me on LinkedIn. I'm pretty active on that front. A lot of my time today is spent on the sales, marketing, partnerships kind of front. I like to be involved on that regard. And so connect with me if you're interested in like, having a conversation, shoot me a DM and I'll probably respond. You can visit our website at www.fanfoodapp.com to learn more about our platform. And on there, we have all of our case studies, blogs, and things like that. If you're interested in some of the content and how we've helped, our venue operators add value. And yeah,
awesome.
We'll keep it close too. Keep it simple.
That's fantastic. And then just to wrap up, this is a question we like to ask all the founders that come on. It's, if you were to go back in time to prior to that, having that idea, sitting there at the bar, having this concept, and then deciding to, figure this out and turning it into a business. If you were to sit down and have coffee with your former self, what one piece of advice would you give to yourself?
Yeah, no, I learned this. So we brought on our a president to help run the day-to-day operations back later last year. I got burnt out bad as an entrepreneur. So definitely it's important to prioritize mental health and prioritize yourself first. But what I learned from him, and he really harped on this, is to write everything down. And I think like, it's like, yeah, that makes sense. But like, I think the more you can write stuff down, the better that you can become at communicating ideas. You develop that skill set. I think that is really, really important, just to write everything down. Write your plans, write just everything. You have an idea, great, write it down. Because if it's important enough for you as an entrepreneur to write it down, it'll be important enough for someone else to take the time and read it. So I think that's just a really important like message, is to like in the early days, like write your stuff down. And also I would say keep it simple by focusing on just one KPI. Like whatever you define as success, focus on like just one KPI and monitor progress off of that one KPI, and don't overcomplicate it, because that's where you start to kind of go down in this hole, and then, you know, it gets challenging to prioritize certain things. So keep focused with one KPI and write stuff down.
Really cool. Well, this has been fantastic. Carson, I really appreciate your time today. For those of you tuning in, I just highly recommend you go check out, it's fanfoodapp.com. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And see what Carson and the team are up to. Carson, again, thank you so much. To everybody tuning in, thank you for joining, and we will see you again next time. Take care, everybody.
I appreciate it.
Thank you.